Hello and welcome everybody to this exciting episode of Strengther by CXO Digital Pulse. This year, we're looking at the importance of investing in women to accelerate progress. And Strengther is where we delve into inspirational narratives that illuminate the journey of remarkable women. In today's episode, we have the spotlight on an extraordinary woman, Viji, a seasoned executive and advocate at the forefront of technology and social impact. And we are going to uncover her compelling story, weaving through the intersections of AI innovation, community empowerment, and the relentless drive to champion diversity in leadership. I'm sure all of you are ready to be inspired by this dynamic force that we have with us, and she's a force to reckon, believe me. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Viji. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Kanji.
I'm going to dive right into my first question for you, Viji, and I'd really like to know, we've seen that you've had an amazing journey. If you reflect back on the journey that you've had, what are some pivotal moments or experiences that have actually shaped you into the leader that you are today?
Sure. I think one of the things that has really, if I look back, one of the things that's really stood out is this adage that when one door closes, another door opens. So if you look back at my journey, I started off being a chemical engineer. I worked for about a year as an engineer, chemical engineer in a plant. This was in the early 90s. And at that time, women were not allowed in the night shift. So it became very clear that it's going to be really, really difficult for me to make a career in chemical engineering, given that, a person, any engineer can really grow into, senior positions only if they are allowed to manage a plant, which includes shifts. And because of this kind of a roadblock, I decided to do an MBA instead and switch careers. And I did do an MBA in finance, but somehow I never took to it. Even though I did the MBA and I worked for a couple of years at the Unit Trust of India, I did not take to it. And that's when technology was just beginning to boom in India. And so I switched careers again and got into tech. And that's where I found my real calling, I would say. And it's been that way ever since, right? So I worked here in the US for, about 15 years. And then due to family reasons, moved back to India. And at that time, I couldn't take on a full-time job and, take care of my ailing mom and kids and all that stuff. And so I decided to reskill. And that's when I got into AI, starting off with data science. So, and since then, I've never looked back. So it's just that at different points when I thought there was a roadblock or, something did not work out, I felt that I just did notice that there was another door that opened that led to more exciting things. So if, there are women out there who feel that, they are stuck, then there's my advice to them as well is don't feel that, just because this door is closed, you sit there, feeling sad that the door is closed, but actually there is another door somewhere that's open for you. You just have to keep, looking and trying out different things to find that other door.
Well, that's actually quite inspiring, Viji. And the peaks and troughs in your journey that you've described and where you are today by the adage that you live with, that another door opens whenever you look around. So that's brilliant. And with such a diverse range of experiences that you've had, you've worked for nonprofits, you've worked for startup ventures. How do you navigate the challenges and opportunities within each of these domains?
So the startup world is very, very different from, any other place I've worked with. So I've worked at. So the startup, I've been at about 9 startups so far. And so one thing with startups is that it's a very fast-paced, extremely fast-paced environment. It's really difficult to even plan, 6 months ahead or even 3 months ahead at times. So it's you need to be able to constantly, pivot, change tracks, and respond to the environment very quickly. It's also extremely important in the startup world to be able to wear multiple hats. So do whatever it takes to get the job done. So, after many years of not having coded hands-on, I went back to coding when we are right now, as we are experimenting with different LLM models. In AI, I'm, at least prototyping by coding myself. So this kind of like switch that's needed, it's actually, I love that adventure. So for me personally, it's been great that you roll up your sleeves and just do what needs to be done. So it's also really important in a startup world that you are a very close-knit team, and so there has to be a lot of trust between team members. I'm not saying it's not needed in a larger organization, but it is much more pronounced in a startup world, because if everybody, there's really only one person that has the skill set, in the team. So everybody has to carry their weight for the team to be successful. When I worked at a larger place, it was quite different. I mean, we had very, very diverse teams, and we had much larger teams. So there I was, managing like leading other, teams and stuff. But here it is, just it's a very flat organization. There's just me and, like the team and my boss, and that's about it, So I am comfortable with that, but not everybody is. And unfortunately, I don't know why, but I don't see many women venture into the startup world at all, like especially, in their careers. They may come in at much as investors, but I've never seen any women even apply for the startup jobs. So that's I don't know why, and I wish that would change.
Well, that's a great observation, and I'm sure that with the amount of work that you and leaders like yourself are doing, that will sure change, and we'll see an uptake in the number of women that actually choose startup as one of their career options, or even begin something on their entrepreneurial journey. Speaking about that, could you share a particular rewarding initiative that you've been involved with that closely aligns with your passion for AI and social impact, of course?
Yeah. So I have worked in social impact more generally when, of course, I worked for Rotary International for about 15 years, which was, in the Chicagoland area. And that was, it's a large not-for-profit worldwide. And so I've always been kind of interested in this space. When I moved back to India, I worked with Whitefield Rising, which was a community initiative in the Whitefield, Bangalore area. Really to improve, many aspects of living there, including schools. I was primarily involved in raising CSR funds for public schools, for waste treatment plants, for many public initiatives, including working on different kinds of schools, dog shelters, because for stray dogs, for battered women, things like that. So that's what I was working on. And that's when I also coincidentally got into AI. So although I couldn't contribute too much in the intersection of AI and social impact, I have volunteered for a number of years with DataKind, which is a New York-based organization. And as part of that, I was involved in evaluating proposals for Google's AI for Good startup initiative. So I think for 2 years in a row, I was evaluating proposals. It was very inspiring to see proposals in so many different domains where social impact and AI came together. And then I also was working for a company called Remojo in Europe, which was involved, interestingly, in solving for porn addiction in the population, mostly men. And the reason I took up the job was because of its social impact. So there have not been that many opportunities, but every time I get a chance, I do look for and try to do something that can combine my skill set with my interest in social impact. So,
That's quite brilliant and really fascinating. And on your journey, from all the social impact initiatives that you've been a part of, advocating for more women in technology roles is something that you've also been doing. I'd like to zoom into that and understand what strategies or approaches have you found the most effective that would help break down barriers and foster inclusivity.
yeah. When I lived in India for about 8 years, I did a lot more work there, I would say, than after moving back. So in India, I have, mentored women who had, like taken a break in their career and were trying to get back into technology, or was many times involved in, giving talks to women. And several times after these talks, I remember this specific incident where I think I'd given a talk at Google, and there was this young woman who stopped me after the talk, and she said, I feel so stuck. I have two young children and I have a full-time job. I don't feel as though I'm able to keep up with technology. I feel so stressed all the time. It just seems impossible that, technology changes so fast. How do you what do I do to overcome it? I can't keep up with it. And if I wanted to upscale and change jobs, it seems almost impossible given the responsibilities I have at work and at home. And this seems to be a common theme for a lot of women, especially around, I would say, the 7 year mark. That's my observation is around like 7 years into their career. That's when I noticed that most women see the most, change in their circumstances. So it's typically after they've completed college and then they've, been in on the job for several years. They've probably gotten married, and that's when they have, their first one or two kids. And that's when the whole thing just hits them. And it is a very tough time for a woman. I mean, there is no denying it. Until men step up and take on half the household responsibility, role, it's just going to be tough. So my advice, and a lot of it stems from the Lenin book that I read much later in my career, but it is really to, first give yourself a break. It is tough. Just recognize that it's a tough period and you're not in it alone. And it will pass. So there will, at that point, for several years, you feel as though there is no time to even breathe, right? You're just doing and just trying to get through every day and not falling apart. So it is a tough time. Just give yourself a break and know that it will pass. And it's okay not to be extremely hard on yourself at that time and say you also have to make major strides in your career. It's okay to if there is a little bit of a setback at that point. But you do know that that if you keep at it after your kids have like little bit gone past that extreme dependency phase, and you feel like you can take a breather, that's the right time to actually gear up with your career. It's again very difficult. It's not easy, especially if you have a full-time job. So I would say, if possible, find a buddy. I tried my best. It is extremely difficult. But if possible, find a buddy to kind of, do some courses together. I did many, maybe around 20 courses online with, Coursera and other such platforms. So it's really important to keep up with technology. So that's a kind of structured way that helps. And finding somebody, whether online or physically, doing it with somebody else will really help. So just kind of like give some time to yourself, but know that you will come back, and don't give up on coming back.
Brilliant. And I couldn't agree more. It does get overwhelming for women with the number of things that they're handling. And quite often than not, they find themselves walking a tightrope, balancing everything on the home front and the career front. So, yes. So all of the which you've suggested, I'm sure will work for women who would want to make it, to break down barriers. You know, and that comes when we look at it, it comes from you as a person more than a profession. So we're going to just speak beyond the professional accomplishments to your personal values and beliefs. And I'd like to understand um, what exactly within those personal value and beliefs that did you draw upon to drive your work forward, both on the home front and your career front.
So that's actually a journey. I can't say I'm there, but it's definitely a journey. So one of the things that's happened over the last 10, 12 years is the workforce has become increasingly global. So in the last 10 years of my startup journey, I worked with people from around the world. And even literally right now, my team is in so many different countries. So given that, it becomes very important that you pick up the skill to work with people from different backgrounds. That does mean that because I'm naturally interested in different cultures, and I read a lot just for fun. So I typically would ask people from different countries to recommend a book that
Mhm.
that they find interesting from the country, and I'll take the time to read it. Or so just knowing people beyond just their work, even though it's mostly online and on Zoom, just taking a few minutes every now and then to just get to know people and their cultures and where they come from, and respect them for who they are, I think really makes a difference. So to me, that's very important. uh, because if you are caring of your team, and at the same time have clear expectations of the work they need to do, that combination to me is the most powerful. Like, you need to care for your team, and you need to have clear expectations and expect only the best from them. So if you can do that, and it's a fine balancing act, right? But if you can do that, I think then you can be pretty successful. And that's one of the things I really try to do in my day-to-day work.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And with that, I've come to, the rapid fire section of the interview where I'm just going to quickly shoot questions and give you about the least possible time to let me know what comes to your mind the first thing when you hear the question. Viji, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
As I said before, the best piece of advice is when one door closes, another door opens. So don't sit there staring at the closed door. Look around and find that open door to move forward.
Fantastic. If you weren't working in technology, what other field would you see yourself in?
That's a difficult one, but I think some combination of I love books and podcasts, and really focus on improving my mind and body. So it's some combination of those four, and I don't know exactly what that's going to be, but something like that.
Fantastic. Um, Speaking about, heavy days, what's your favorite way to unwind after a very busy day?
Yeah, actually, that's a good one because I do work long hours, but I take some time in the evening to go for a quick run or a workout of some kind. So I started running very late in life, so in my 40s. But I do a 3 or 5K, depend. If on work days, I do a 3K every other day or so, and a 5K on a weekend. I do that, and then I started to do this meditation technique called Kirtan Kriya. It's very well studied. I read it in a book called The XX Brain, which is about the female brain. Well researched book. So I do that, and then I do yoga for about 15 minutes, and I do another meditation and read a book, and then I fall asleep. So yeah, I have this kind of set routine I do on work days after work.
That's absolutely great. And if we have to look at the polar opposite of your day, do you have a morning routine to set the tone for the day?
Yes, so the previous night, typically, I kind of like project and see what I'm going to be doing the next day. And typically, the first thing that occurs to me when I get out of bed is to keep those things in mind. And that just propels me through the morning. So I don't look at my phone until much later in the morning. And I don't do anything else but just like get out of bed. And I do have a kind of idea of how my day is going to go, at least like a couple of things I want to accomplish that day. And I typically I have a personal Trello board that I follow throughout the day, and I try to get those things done, or at least make some progress towards getting those things done.
That's absolutely great. Well, what's the one skill or hobby that you've always wanted to learn but haven't found the time for it yet?
Uh, so as I mentioned, I love books. So I have always been an avid reader, but I've always wanted to write. And I did do a class with last year with Amit Verma, but I haven't yet put in the effort to write. So, but I'm hoping to change that soon. I do journaling, quite often, maybe 3 to 3 times a week, but I haven't yet really written, beyond that. And I do want to, spend some time with that.
Fantastic. Well, I'm just waiting for one of your pen down books to come and hit the bestsellers chart.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Viji. That was the final question that I had for you, and it's been a brilliant conversation. Thank you for doing this with us.
Thank you, Kanchi.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up our conversation with Viji, we've seen that her resilience and passion leave an indelible mark in our minds, reminding us of the transformative power of dedication and purpose. And like she said, and we can't repeat it enough, that if one door closes, the other one opens. So that's the mantra that she lives by. And her journey serves as a reminder of the importance of investing in women and nurturing diverse voices within the tech industry and, of course, beyond. With that, we wind up this episode at Strengther and request you all to keep watching the space for more such stories and narratives like Viji's, joining us to continue celebrating and amplifying the voice of women driving progress in our communities and industries. Thank you.